right, so we're now at food and welfare. Anybody who wishes to make a comment, you'll have 2 minutes. The way we're going to be doing this is Doug is going doing the 3 minutes. I'm going to get you on, and then Doug is going to be doing the timer, 2-minute timer. So you'll get the warnings from Doug. Okay. Sorry. There's no name here, so I can't. So when you remember,
Please state your name for the record.
Natasha Fennell.
okay.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Brown.
Okay, good evening, Teaneck City Council, Mayor Dunleavy, Deputy Mayors, Mr. Katz, Mr. Schultz, Council members, Mrs. Rice, Mrs. Orji, Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Pagan, and City Manager Dean Kaczynski. I am Natasha Pennell, and on behalf of my mother, Thelma Pennell, and I, we would like to thank you for allowing us to share our concerns. My brother was Philip Pennell, who was shot and killed by a Teaneck police officer 30 years ago. And I'm reminded of that pain to this day, being that senseless killings of Black and brown people are still occurring by the hands of police officers. With that said, after the recent death of George Floyd, which sparked national protests of BLM murals being painted throughout the country, I propose that the Teaneck City Council allow for its own BLM murals to be painted in Teaneck, New Jersey on 8th Street, directly near the Ricciardi Brothers store, where the Walgreens parking lot entrance is. I want to point out the fact that Teaneck, New Jersey prides itself for being the first in the nation to desegregate its schools and for the diversity that spread throughout the town. I feel this BLM mural would not only acknowledge my brother and the many other lives lost, it will represent healing. It will be a symbolization of change within the town of Teaneck, New Jersey, whereas 30 years ago, there was a different climate amongst Teaneck residents. Now today, everyone has marched and rallied together, showing we can all coexist and respect one another. I wanted you all to know that I grew up in the town of Teaneck, and I still love the town of Teaneck, despite what has happened to my family. I believe the BLM mural would promote unity in the community. By Teaneck, New Jersey, honoring this, it can bring closure and acknowledgement that it has happened here. After visiting and researching BLM murals, the cost may vary, so I'm asking the Teaneck City Council will agree to allot a minimum budget of $5,000 to compensate for the professional artists, for all supplies, even township staff that may be needed. And thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next I have
Hello?
Reby White, are you there?
Yes, Odin Creepy White. I'm here.
You have,
All right, thank you. Hello, council members. My name is Odin Creepy White, a 2020 graduate of Teaneck High School and an incoming freshman at Morehouse College. As a lifelong resident of Teaneck, I've seen and experienced the beauty of growing up in a racially and ethnically diverse town. I have friends who look nothing like me that come from totally different backgrounds, but still we get along very well. The recent news coverage of the Black Lives Matter movement has shed light on the problems that have existed and occurred in this country for hundreds of years. But this is something I believe needs to be recognized here in Teaneck. One of the steps we can take towards making a better future in our town is having a mural created celebrating and honoring the Black Lives Matter movement. The mural would not be the final step we take as a town, but one of the many steps we take, both symbolically and also legally, to stop racial injustices and support the Black community of Teaneck. This could be a great opportunity for various segments of the community to come together and declare that Teaneck stands with others and in the fact that Black Lives Matter and Black lives truly matter. I'm currently involved in a multiracial group that is preparing a formal proposal for the mural, and we hope you will be willing to support and approve this important project. And if anyone listening would like to be a part of this initiative in the town, please contact me or contact us at teaneckblmmural@gmail.com. Again, that is teaneckblmmural@gmail.com. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Klatsky.
Hi, good evening, Council. The topic I'd like to talk about seems so irrelevant compared to the previous two speakers, but I'd like to bring up a technical matter to the attention of the Council. Near my home, there's a street that many of you are familiar with, it's Garrison Avenue. And I know the town has taken some really critical and important safety measures to implement a road diet on the street. They did a test pilot about a year and a half ago or so from Beverly Road until Claremont Avenue. And recently they used the results of that pilot to conduct an expansion. And they did the same from the bridge at Route 4 all the way north to West Englewood Avenue, leaving about a 3-block gap, maybe 4-block gap. So what happens now, what I've observed outside, around the corner from my home is that drivers, they'll go to this narrow section, they'll slow down because the street feels physically narrower because of all the lines that are painted there. As soon as they pass Claremont Avenue, they see the road is now widened to a 20-foot wide lane, and they speed up as fast as they can because they feel so much more open and comfortable. I want to bring that to your attention. I think it's important that we fill that gap. And it just seems to be, whether it's simple paint or thermoplastic markings, it seems like a simple fix for I think it's a 1 or 2 mile long stretch. There's just this tiny gap in the center, and I ask that the Council take this on for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Mr. DeFalco.
Hi. Good evening, Council. My name is Samantha DeFalco, and I'm an
I
organizer.
apologize. I said Sam as a male. I apologize.
Yeah, it's no problem. Thank you. My name is Sam DeFalco, and I'm an organizer with Food and Water Action. I'm speaking today on behalf of our 300 plus members in Teaneck, our 70,000 members in New Jersey, and the Don't Gas the Meadowlands coalition of over 60 organizations. We are asking Teaneck Town Council to pass a resolution against the power plant NJ Transit has proposed as part of their transit grid project, calling for a stop to this dangerous and ill-conceived power plant and a redirection of the $410 million taxpayer grant that would pay for it into a renewable alternative. We hope you do this to stand up for the health and environment of New Jersey. As you know, Bergen, Hudson, and Essex counties are the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic here in New Jersey. These 4 counties also have failing grades of ground level ozone pollution that is caused by burning fossil fuels. New Jersey's already dangerous level of ground level ozone will increase if another power plant is built in our state. Ground level ozone is directly related to asthma, reduced lung function, and chronic lung disease. Right now, more than 700,000 New Jerseyans suffer from asthma and 300,000 others live with COPD. And this is directly tied into our current global health crisis because chronic lung illness is one of the major factors that increase one's risk of dying from COVID-19. We're seeing the worst outcomes from this virus happen along racial lines because Black and Latinx residents have asthma at 2 to 4 times the rate of white residents because low-income communities of color have historically faced the biggest pollution burdens in our state. Governor Murphy has an obligation to uphold his commitment to protect environmental justice communities. We cannot have any more major polluters in our state, especially in communities that have historically been made to face the brunt of the pollution burden. It's also completely egregious that in 2020, when the science is clear that we must drastically cut our emissions in order to avoid the most disastrous consequences of climate change, a state agency is seeking to build a natural gas plant. We all suffered through Hurricane Sandy, and we know we need to build infrastructure that can withstand worsening effects of climate change. But it's completely ridiculous to build climate change resiliency using fossil fuels. as it is a dying industry. We can either invest millions in this unnecessary power plant that'll poison the communities it claims to serve and destroy the climate and environment in the process, or we can direct the $410 million taxpayer grant into an actual solution that will promote climate resiliency and achieve our state's own energy goals and create green jobs that will last for generations. Whether or not this power plant is built will set the course of New Jersey's renewable energy future. So we urge you to pass this resolution tonight to protect the health and future of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falco. Next, I have Ms. Rogovin. You're on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Paula Rogovin. I want to thank the Environmental Commission who asked the Town Council to support this municipal resolution. Call on Governor Murphy to New Jersey Transit broadcast and to support renewable energy rail alternative. I hope council members will vote for this resolution tonight. The resolution, like the one Teaneck passed opposing the Meadowlands power plant in North Bergen, addresses the issue of environmental racism and the placement of most fossil fuel infrastructure projects in communities of color. We can see the health impacts of this policy during the pandemic. I'm very upset that Bettina Hempel, who was elected by the Environmental Commission, was removed from the Environmental Commission. Why? She's compassionate about the environment. She provided leadership. She spent endless hours working on Environmental Commission efforts. Her attendance was excellent. She's respected by committee members. What do you say to her young sons when their mother is simply dumped from the EC? I ask the council instruct the manager to reinstate Bettina Hempel to the Environmental Commission immediately. Another topic, I'm glad the renaming of Jefferson Street to that of Stephen Przanski was dropped after some of us protested. Did the council member Organ want to remove Jefferson's name because he was a slave owner? Or was this a convenient effort to latch onto the Black Lives Matter movement in order to get the street renamed? But renamed after Przanski, who's anti-Arab, anti-LGBTQ, and distrust rape victims, and who has been denounced by a number of Jewish organizations. Teaneck needs to establish a process for community involvement and deliberation for renaming streets, parks, buildings, and other things in town. Very quickly, I was poll watching at Bryan's school on election day. They ran out of ballots. I wrote to the council. Councilman Mark Schwartz said that this issue is now in the hands of the county. But we need to maximize the vote, and we need to find out for the way in advance of the next election why people chose to vote in person with provisional ballots. We need to find out, we need to ask questions so that we can correct the problem and make sure everyone is allowed to vote. Some people were not able to vote, they had to leave. They weren't able to come back. Another topic, finally. Once again, I'm outraged by the racism of the council majority who voted for 3 white men to be mayor and 2 deputy mayors. I wrote to the 6 of you who voted for this and called on any one of you who now understands why it was inappropriate and why so many people in Teaneck believe it was racist to step down and to nominate Councilwoman Rice. This will not go away. Council members, be part of the solution.
Thank you, Mr. Rogovan. Next is a phone number.
112.
Lillian Lewis.
Oh, Lillian Lewis. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. You have 3
Thank-
minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lillian Lewis. I want to speak regarding the ordinance 6099. I didn't hear you speak on that yet, but I'm going to speak on that. Especially item number 5, where it reads, Council Advisory Boards closed to the public. I am a former member of the Teaneck Advisory Board on Community Relations, which I served on for more than 10 years. The public was always welcome to attend, and those who did attend always waited until the good and welfare portion to speak. We never had any problems with the public. Why are you requesting advisory board meetings to be closed to the public? It is important that our community stay informed on all that we do in our town. We have always boasted of inclusiveness. This is definitely contrary to our convictions. So please delete number 5 from that order.
I'm sorry. Ms. Lewis, do you have something else to say?
Hello?
I'm sorry. I hit it. Please continue.
I paused the time.
That was my fault.
Okay, I don't know when I became muted. Okay, I'll start here then. We never had any problems with the public. Why are you requesting advisory board meetings to be closed to the public? It is important that our community stay informed on all that we do in our town. We have always boasted of inclusiveness. This is definitely contrary to our convictions. So please delete item number 5 from ordinance 6099, which reads council advisory boards closed to the public. We should have the public at any of our advisory board meetings because they do learn quite a bit and they do wait until it's time for good and welfare to present their issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Debbie Eliyahu.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Deb.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. I come before you, I speak to you this evening, quite saddened and hurt by something that was reported to have been said at the last meeting after the election to the offices of mayor and deputies mayor. I was one of those who spoke during good and welfare, congratulated those who were elected, praised their experience, but did express sorrow that the beautiful and much touted diversity of Teaneck wasn't represented. It wasn't represented in those higher offices. I was deeply hurt by what was attributed to Deputy Mayor Schwartz about those who expressed comments similar to mine. First, we were compared to hecklers, snarky puppets in a children's show. That in itself is insulting and unbecoming of an elected official. We were also minimized and ridiculed as people who could really be dismissed because we were retired, didn't have children in town, and weren't working. In other words, we aren't young working parents and are therefore unimportant. Let me go through this. Unless you're privy to personal information, you don't know what the employment or parenthood status is of many people in the township. Deputy Mayor Schwartz also does not know the reason for this status. Is somebody retired out of choice, or were they pushed out of the workforce? And if somebody isn't raising children in town, if they have children, are they out of town for education or medical needs? Or is the person childless, and is that out of choice or maybe not? And I know enough people for whom this is a terribly painful matter. And then for those who aren't working, why is that? Could it be that they lost their jobs and are in that age group where it's hard to find another? Or did they lose the jobs because of COVID-19 along with many millions of others? Or could it be disability, including something that isn't readily apparent to others? For me, it was cancer. I always saw my wounds and scars as battle scars, and I'm very proud of them. This is my personal war, and I'm forced to fight each and every day, even if I don't want to. I lost 2 jobs because of cancer and treatments, and I'm currently unable to work. I found the deputy mayor's remarks deeply hurtful and dismissive. While you may not have intended to hurt, insult, and ridicule your fellow residents, this is what happened. And I speak for others as well. Perhaps a little thought before comparing us to snarky, crotchety, heckling puppets would be a good thing. Thinking of us as valuable members of the township would be a good thing too. You may not like us or our views, and you have no idea how we voted, but I can assure you that no matter what our employment or family status, we pay taxes just as everybody else in the town. And if we and our views are to be considered less than, I respectfully request that our tax burden be reduced as well. And if that's not to be the case, then please treat us with the respect due to all township residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eliyahu. Mr. Bravetti?
Mr. Bravetti,
Yes, good
Bravetti?
evening.
you have 3 minutes, Mr. Bravetti.
Thank you so much. I have 2 points to make. First, I urge you to vote in favor of the resolution to stop yet another fracked gas power plant proposed for the Meadowlands, the one that Sam DeFalco documented for you. And this one is financed with taxpayer money. I'm grateful that not long ago, the Teaneck Council voted for a similar resolution to stop a different power plant proposal initially endorsed by Governor Murphy. After a campaign that included resolutions passed by over 50 towns, including Teaneck, and with a lot of pressure, Governor Murphy actually withdrew his support and the proposal was killed. We need to do this again. We need to stop a new significant source of toxic pollution and contributor to global warming. Perhaps you've read about the most recent signal Mother Nature is giving us that the time is now to switch to renewable energy sources. Just last month, there were sustained temperatures in the high 80s, 90s, and even over 100 degrees. Not so bad for June, except that these temperatures were recorded in northern Siberia within the Arctic Circle. It's time to please vote for the resolution to stop the power plant and to invest the funds in renewable energy solutions. My second point is that I must join those who have criticized the 6 members of the council for purposely not seconding the nomination and not voting for Javon Rice to assume a leadership position on the council. In a time when many across this nation and here in Teaneck are struggling to bring to life ways to make Black Lives Matter, the council made the premeditated choice not to represent the diversity of Teaneck, selecting 3 white men to the leadership team. Is that not an example of white privilege that the mayor referred to earlier in the agenda? What an opportunity was missed. I'll just leave you with a couple of questions. When you met to decide on the leadership, did it not even occur to you to consider Javon for one of the positions? Or did you consider Javon but rejected the idea? Either way, you exhibited a profound lack of judgment and leadership. Either way, what makes me sad and appalled, really, is that you were in the position to help bring the town together.
30 seconds, Mr. Bravetti. I apologize.
It would have been an historic unifying act, and yet you rejected that possibility. It's not enough to not be racist. You must be proactively anti-racist. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bravetti. Ms. Powell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm calling, well, first of all, I want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Bravetti and utter my absolute, I think I can say disgust in the way that the reorganization meeting was handled. But that's not even the reason I'm calling in this evening. I'm calling in support of the Black Lives Matter street mural project. And I know we have Kasai Sanchez, who just received the Youth Award. She's waiting on the call. She wanted to make a proposal in light of that. But I want to applaud O'Dane and Natasha Pinnell for presenting their ideas for the Black Lives Matter mural project. Most have probably heard a lot about the murals that were commissioned in the various boroughs of New York, but there are several New Jersey towns who also have murals. And I know that there are some in the larger cities like Newark and New Brunswick, but I recently also found out about some in some of our smaller towns. Highland Park was one that stood out to me, Highland Park, New Jersey, and Middlesex. NewJersey.com reported on June 18th that Highland Park created a Black Lives Matter mural as a visual reminder of the movement and the constant need to address the systemic issues that their residents of color face. Highland Park is 67.4% white and 10.1% Black. The mural was the idea of their Human Relations and Arts Commission, and their police, council members, and mayor were all supportive of the artwork being done. In Teaneck, particularly given the political climate, this would serve just as a symbol, but a needed symbol for the need for addressing the systemic issues that negatively impact Black and brown people. This should be a no-brainer. In Highland Park, their DPW donated the paint, but I'm sure there are other options if that's not, a possibility here. Although I know that we need more than symbolic gestures, we have to start somewhere. And I've seen how these murals can spark courageous conversations and build bridges. We certainly can use more of that. And I also know that at least one of our neighboring towns are proposing the same. So Teaneck should be leading. And I'm asking that you please support this initiative. This would be really good for us, and we need something like this, especially right now. Good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. All I have is, oh, okay, just from the panelist. I have B. I don't know where she went. I'm sorry.
Mayor, I see her. I see B.
Okay.
B, you need to unmute yourself. I'm trying to do that. Oh, she's listening to some help.
Hello?
There you go, B. You have 3 minutes. Can you please state your name for the record?
Sure, yes, Bernadette Morello. Good evening. At the June Council meeting, we discussed how residents of Oakdean Avenue were dealing with a very difficult situation with a home with absentee owners renting it out on Airbnb and other sites for one night, very large parties. This has continued after the June meeting into July, and we have been dealing with young people coming from out of town and out of state to our neighborhood with very loud noises till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, alcohol bottles being thrown into tires and onto lawns, people urinating on our properties, people parking on front lawns, marijuana smells coming into our windows. We've had to have the police several times. Each time this has happened, it's getting more and more dangerous. People are coming home feeling threatened because these are people not from our town, not from our neighborhood. And I know that former Mayor Hamadine advised the council to adopt an ordinance to ban these short-term rentals. And I'm just really hoping that the council could, as soon as possible, put this ordinance into place so that the residents of Oakdean Avenue do not have to deal with this much longer, and that no residents of Teaneck have to deal with this, because it's been throughout the pandemic, which shows how irresponsible these owners have been. When we were trying to stop the spread of the virus, there's been more than 30 to 40 people gathering at these homes starting May 22nd, and it is still ongoing. So I thank you for listening. I thank you for all your hard work, and I thank you for taking action on this matter and adopting an ordinance to help ban this so that no residents of Teaneck have to deal with this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I know we answer at the end, but if the resident can send her contact info to the manager, there may be things that can be done pending that, just so she can be aware.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Sanchez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kasai Sanchez. I'm also speaking so that the town council may approve and fund the mural for the Black Lives Matter movement. Teaneck is such that you will fail to find a single street that features people of one race, religion, or ethnicity. If you drive around in hopes of finding a church, having the belief that our town features a single place of worship, in minutes you will ascertain the truth. Teaneck was the first town to integrate, encouraging other towns to do the same and to take steps to create racial justice. Teaneck is a place known for fostering growth and exemplifying the essence of community and strong leadership. But part of displaying a sense of strong community also means being aware of racial struggles of people and raising awareness for these struggles so that change may be established. The community of African descent people, including African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Hispanics, and African Americans, have dealt with oppression and struggled for hundreds of years, and this struggle and fight continues. In Teaneck, we teach respect, empathy, and justice. In preserving the values of Teaneck, if we remain silent when any member of our community is faced with injustice, oppression, and disrespect, we would fail as a town to demonstrate the prior mentioned characteristics. The Black Lives Matter movement is one that has gained so much exposure as it works to highlight injustice, oppression, and demand racial equality and justice. It's a movement that's not only a trending topic, but an overdue discussion. Not today, but every single day. To demonstrate that Teaneck as a town is in agreement with this statement and has a sense of respect and empathy for humanity, we propose a mural as a symbol that we will not tolerate injustice, oppression, discrimination, or racism of any kind in our town. And additionally, the mural will honor the people, including Philip Pennell, who was shot here in Teaneck over 30 years ago and was wrongfully killed because of prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination. We as a town and community must continue to do all that we do so that we can establish change and continue to lead by example for racial equality and justice for everyone. I'm here today to ask the town council and the township manager to approve and fund the creation of a Black Lives Matter street mural as I previously stated. We have a committee of dedicated Teaneck youth members and adults who are willing to participate and work in partnership with you to make this happen. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Kazai. Next is Christchurch Teaneck.
Please state your name, Christchurch, for the record.
I am the Reverend Michelle White, vicar at Christchurch Teaneck. Good evening, everyone, and I know who I am. I am online. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My partner and I came here 9 years ago to Teaneck, and we heard the dominant narrative of racial harmony and integration and collaboration that preceded our arrival in Teaneck. However, I have to say to you that I am terribly disappointed by the failure to represent Black people in the leadership positions in Teaneck. Planning board, town council, the disregard for Javon Rice by refusing to appoint her as deputy mayor. Why not a bit of creativity? Is it possible to have more than 1 or 2 deputy mayors? Is that possible? To give an opportunity to someone who has served the township throughout her entire life? Is it possible to make sure that Black people are represented on planning boards? Is it possible that you are creative enough to figure out how not only to support murals, but to invite high school students in to prepare them to take leadership in town governance? Is it possible that you can create systems that will change the narrative in Teaneck? So we can give lots and lots of lip service to the dominant narrative, but in the 9 years that I've been here, I have not seen any systematic or substantial change in the ways in which Teaneck is governed. So I am offering you an opportunity to use your influence to not only support verbally the presence of Black people in Teaneck in their fullest capacity, in our fullest capacity, but to change the systems that tend to exclude us. It's wonderful to be liberal, but beyond liberalism is the effort, the continuous and consistent effort to change the systems. If you don't change the systems, none of this will change, ever. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you, Reverend White. Scott Pleasance,
Yes, I'm here.
you have 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I'm calling to voice my support for the Black Lives Matter mural proposal on State Street. Back on July 5th, I sent the mayor, along with the manager, a suggestion or recommendation to support New Jersey AJR 171, which was to designate July 13th as Black Lives Matter Day in New Jersey. Along with that, my recommendation was for Teaneck to get in front of the curve and utilize the portable Verimax signs to simply state Black Lives Matter. Now that day has, July 13th has passed and the legislation is pending, but you still have an opportunity to do something significant, which actually can happen tomorrow morning if you'd like. We should utilize those portable signs, one stationary right where it is adjacent to the police building, or move it a little ways down in front of the municipal building, and a secondary one where the proposed mural can be on State Street. Optics play a big role in how people see the support of our township. And with that, with that said, I want to join in the chorus in indicating what a disservice that we've done by not allowing Ms. Rice to have one of those leadership positions. And like I said, in regards to the signs, we can do that tomorrow. And I'm more than willing to come out and press the button or plug it in, or whatever it would take to support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Next up is Ray Goldberg.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ray. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. I wanted to just add my voice to the chorus of those who were disappointed with the outcome regarding Councilwoman Rice. In particular, I note that it felt to me like the failure by all of you council members not to even second her own self-nomination was an act of deep disrespect toward one of your own, a fellow council member. I found that particularly disappointing. I'd like to suggest, make 3 brief comments. Number one is, it seems to me from where I sit, and I'm new to the town's politics, that healing the town's divisions and bridging the town's gaps ought to be the council's #1 priority for the coming year. There's lots of different ways to do that. I don't have to go through a laundry list, but it seems to me that literally is the #1 objective for this town. Number 2, related to that, I think that we need more transparency, not less. So the idea of closing off meetings of any governing group for the town to any public attendance seems to me misguided at best, or actually destructive at worst. And then third, on a more minor point, but still related, if we're going to be on Zoom, as Dean said, through the end of the year, perhaps longer, none of us really knows, obviously, I would think that it would be worth exploring how to get more town members able to get on, how to get all of us better at using it. And there were some issues last month in terms of how to do that in a room where a lot of people were physically present, but some others were dialed in, which I understand. But we ought to get really experienced at it and get really good at it, because this is the way we're going to be governing for at least the rest of the year, at least as far as we can tell. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I don't see any other. Oh, got it. Charles?
Yes, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Chuck Powers. I'm there. In the first place, I want to be very grateful to the fact that Dean has been able to move ahead on getting the body cams underway. The town has been not getting that done for about 10 years. It's nice to know that the entire police force is very much in favor of that. It's certainly a far better way for us to understand the performance of our entire police force, and it's important to get that done very quickly. I also like to agree with almost everything that Mr. Goldberg just said. Certainly, there must be some way to include a much larger, so far as I can tell, there are a whole lot of people who wanted to be on this Zoom tonight, and I believe a whole lot of other folks who would like to have had something to say, but I'm not quite sure the process by which they were excluded. I got quite a few things, as I believe Councilwoman Rice did, from people saying that they absolutely could not get on. They were being, and as a matter of fact, they were being told that they were being refused access. We need a better system than that if we're going to continue to use this as the mechanism by which to do our work. I want to go back to the point that not only do Black lives matter generally, but particularly Black women's lives matter, particularly if they're some of the most competent people in this town. And what we now know is that well over 700 people in the Township of Teaneck in the last 48 hours have signed a petition to you folks to say that it is time that white male dominant leadership is not acceptable in the Black Lives Matter era. And in fact, that Denise Belcher in particular, an extraordinarily competent person who understands very well how it is that land use decisions ought to be made. She may not in every case agree with Mark Schwartz on every matter, but I would suggest that that's probably just fine, because nor do a heck of a lot of other people, apparently 707 people, rather than just a couple of crotchety old people, Muppets sitting up in the balcony. That's quite a balcony we got there. And I'm not sure how many of there are of you who are sitting down there denying the access of Denise Belcher to bring her considerable talents to bear on making important decisions for our choices in how we organize the land use in this town. I don't understand it. I also like to be appreciative of the fact that you apparently are not going to try to ram through a quick resolution on the holy name deal. Let me be very clear. Last November, I had an opportunity to review that entire structure. What it is the holy name is proposing is quite excellent, and I think it's high time that, and I agreed that was something to be done after discussions with many people in that neighborhood. But the idea that we're only going to take about a $200,000 add-on instead of getting our fair share of the very profitable nonprofit institutions tax matters is crazy. The way in which that has been at least articulated in the publication so far is unacceptable, and I hope that you folks will take a very good look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Mr. Song. Mr. Song.
Okay, the story of racism and bigotry from this council majority long predates the national nightmare that brought Donald Trump to Washington. Think back to 2012 when James Kinlock, a competent, trained professional, long serving on the planning board as an alternate, was deliberately passed over so that an African American could be replaced by a white male legal secretary with no professional training, zero experience on a land use board, and whose primary credential was his connections and undying loyalty to his political godfather. After being elected on May 12th, the Brain Trust spent 7 weeks during which George Floyd was killed. A pair of marches to Black Lives Matter and Juneteenth took place in Teaneck, attended by thousands of residents. On July 1st, the takeaway by the Gang of Six was that all 3 of Teaneck's leadership positions should be filled by 3 white males. It's hardly a surprise that Councilwoman Romney Rice has been systematically excluded. Nor should we be surprised that Denise Belcher was deliberately passed over for a seat on the planning board after a previous failed attempt to kick her off. Together with Bettina Hempel, who was dumped from the Environmental Commission, They have been tossed out and disregarded not despite their abilities and accomplishments, but because of them. Board trustee and campaign manager for Moving Teaneck Forward, Gerald Reiner, was the architect of a campaign that used racist dog whistles and knowingly false allegations that the Board of Education had deliberately canceled busing for students at Solomon Schechter Day School. Reiner didn't get the usual payoff for his dirty work. Instead, his wife was handed a concocted role as mayoral representative on the planning board to occupy a seat assigned to the mayor that he refuses to fill. Section 213 of the code specifies that the mayor, quote, shall sit as the Class 1 member of the planning board, end quote. Section 292 specifies 2 words for the identity of the Class 1 member, quote, the mayor. No one should be getting a crooked appointment to serve on the planning board as a political payoff. Ordinance 15-2020, which restructures advisory boards and commissions, takes a giant step backwards. On page 295, legal authority of council's advisory boards, paragraph 5 states, quote, council's advisory board meetings are closed to the public. The drastic restrictions limiting members and the closing of meetings to the public are anti-transparency and anti-democratic. They're intended to create an echo chamber that tells the council only what it wants to hear. In its first 2 meetings, this council has shown that it is heading in the absolute wrong direction, doing all it can to exclude and ignore the public. This council needs to find ways to broaden and increase public input and participation rather than working as hard as it can to suppress it. Thank you.
Oops. Mr. El Karyani.
Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Yassine Al Karyani. I have a question. First question: does anybody know what the racial composition was of the planning board prior to June 30th of this year, and what we have now, or what the potential, or what the composition would be if the potential nominees are all appointed? That's 1. 2, I had sent the council 12 remarks about the ordinance to amend the code vis-a-vis the advisory boards, and I would like to just say this. I'll summarize it in this. I understand very well, and then first, before that actually, this is not a step backwards. This is a step forward. And I believe it was in January 2018 that I came in front of council and asked about how the advisory boards are being held accountable. And at that time, I did not get an answer. I guess it took the election of Jim Dunleavy and Keith Kaplan for this to become a serious concern and a serious exercise to take into action. And I can't thank then Councilman Dr. Dunleavy for the effort in listening to the chairs. Nevertheless, I would like to say this. I understand that there is a serious concern about productivity of advisory boards. I agree with that, but I think the package that we have in front of us right now does not solve it. Let me suggest something to you. I think the meetings should be open, but the advisory boards should have a unified meeting decorum where the advisory boards remain focused on their agendas and delivering results. At the same time, I love the idea that advisory boards ought to present outcomes and deliverables to council. I think it should be a two-way tennis game where we also hear from the council what the expectations are. The rest of my comments, you have them. I think there is some serious, we're on the right track, but we need to do it right. So I hope you can take this into account and then see if there are any changes to be made to the potential ordinance. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Yassine. Cheryl?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I was not at the last meeting, so I will congratulate everyone on the council. Since I have 3 minutes, I wanted to quickly also add my support to the power plant resolution proposal. I am a Black woman suffering with severe asthma. And as I came to the council last year, in October of 2019, the American Lung Association gave the Township of Teaneck a grade of F for their air quality. So I think that is something that we need to be concerned about, especially given the crisis of COVID-19. My second issue is I feel, and I implore the council to, and I got on the meeting late because I couldn't get in, so, but I implore this council to do something special for recognition for all of our frontline heroes in the Township of Teaneck, especially TVAC, and so many more. I am a daughter of a 20-year career Marine who was missing in action and rewarded a Purple Heart. The type of death that was seen by these frontline workers was war time death. You go in to try and save people. It's not normal to go home at night and know that you lost all of the patients that you tried to save, or most of them. And the risk to the families, even those that did not contract COVID, it's quite serious. Those emotional scars will be with them forever. I can tell you as a veteran's daughter, those emotional scars will be there forever. And I also want to implore the Township of Teaneck to consider providing free psychological counseling. This is a very serious event, and even though we're going back to life as normal, I don't believe it is over. I read journals. So I think that definitely our frontline heroes, our police officers, people need psychological. And in terms of Black Lives Matter, I just want to remind you of another mayor that has my same last name, who was also an Irish Catholic, Frank Hall, who was mayor during Philip Canal, and he worked hard to bring that community together. And that is your task. You have big shoes to fill, but there's hurt in the Black community, and actions speak louder than words. A march is great, but recognizing the eloquent work of Black people, especially Javon and Denise, means a lot. We're watching. The youth are watching as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Ms. Gordon? Ms. Gordon, there you go. Ms. Gordon?
My name is Dr. Gail Gordon. I'm co-president of the East OT Neighborhood Association. Looking back at the July 1st council meeting, it's clear that this council is assuming dictatorial leadership. The council is keeping Javon Rice out of a leadership position, blatantly showing that you are now in control of everything. Is this an act of revenge since Ms. Rice received more votes than Ellie Katz, Jim Dunleavy, and Keith Kaplan in the 2018 election? Are you afraid of her? You need to rethink your decision and give her a seat as deputy mayor. Mark Schwartz opposed the reappointment of Denise Belcher to the planning board. When asked why he did not support her, he said in part because she ran against me. In both these cases, it shows that you expect total loyalty or you're out. The changes to the advisory board on tonight's agenda are breathtaking. The council will determine who the advisory board should consult with. The public is left completely out. The council will get the advice that it wants. Why are you so afraid of hearing from the public? Mayor Dunleavy said at the July 1st council meeting that racism is like a virus and that we must get to work to overcome it. He said that it would take a focus by everyone to make changes. He stressed looking inward, doing a self-assessment. He said we must guard against ignoring underlying causes. I think the mayor is right. But let's see some real meaningful action that can be done here tonight by reinstating Denise Belcher on the planning board and appointing Jerron Rice as deputy mayor. Sharing power with the Black community. As it stands now, the council is reflecting dictatorial white power and that they control everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Ms. Burns?
Good evening. I am also co-president of the East Votee Neighborhood Association. But what I would like to speak to is the ordinance 15-2020, which is regarding the advisory boards. It seems to me that it needs to have some additional work done to it. Ms. Bettina Hempel was asked to step down because in order to make way for new leadership. And yet other people have been serving on advisory boards for decades, statutory and advisory boards. So it seems that the decision is arbitrary and capricious. And I think that you need to codify term limits or somehow make the criteria known as to when you're going to allow people to step down or force people to step down to make way for new leadership. It seems to me that this ordinance is designed to insulate yourself from disagreement. And I would like to submit that disagreement is an opportunity. Disagreement with your position means that perhaps your position is not perfect. And it's an opportunity to encourage people to speak up and strive for perfection, to get to a common consensus. When you are setting yourself up to have only agreement, then the decisions that you make may not be the best decisions for the entire community. I also want to tell you that anti-racism is action. It's not just words. If you say the pretty words but don't follow it up with action, then it is meaningless. And I think that you need to pave the way for leadership with people of color from all races, all things, but especially right now, in this time, in this moment in history, you need to have leadership from Black American voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Ms. Ware?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Aisha.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to give a few things that already have been said. I just agree that the advisory board needs to have some additional work. The residents need to be informed about the selection process, how we need to ensure there's accountability, there's transparency. We should be able to all have a clear understanding in layman terms that everyone is able to understand and comprehend how is it that you're doing what you're doing. I'm not sure as to what the basis, rationale, or justification was in regards to closing the meetings to the public. I would like to kind of have a better understanding about that. And I would also like to know how the council is now going to create change because as everyone has said so far, losing Ms. Rice, not having people who have been in the town and have worked tirelessly to create change and not be given the recognition that they should have, it really doesn't leave room for other kids like mine to have someone to look up to and say, wow, you know, this is what hard work will bring you. So I think we need to be very mindful that we are all watching and that the way things were done are not going to be done like that anymore. And we need more transparency and we need to make sure things are done fairly and with justice, not favoritism and not preferential treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. I see one hand. There we go. Whoop, where'd it go? I got hands jumping here. Doug, every time I go to hit the talk, it's jumping away. What's going on?
Yeah, I see it. That's happening on my screen too. Give me 1 second, maybe I can find that.
I saw two other people there.
I saw Henry and Juanita.
Yeah. Yeah.
Miss Juanita Brown.
I'm here.
Miss Brown, you have 3 minutes.
Oop, what happened?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Can you?
Now I can hear you. You have 3 minutes, Miss Brown.
Okay. My name is Juanita Brown, and I'm calling to. I'm confused because of the first page of the agenda says that Teaneck is New Jersey's most culturally diverse community. How come that's not displayed within the political makeup of the council? To put that on your first page and then for someone to see the council as it is, it's an outright lie. It's not true at all. So I don't understand. We're saying one thing and we're showing something totally different. What Teaneck now has to offer is a white, male-dominated Jewish majority government. That doesn't represent Teaneck. Can you still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm really disgusted at the way the council is made up at this point. What are we supposed to do? Just pay taxes and just let it be as it is? No, that's not acceptable, and it's not going to work. The advisory boards being private, I'm a member of the senior advisory board. Transparency is what we need to improve ourselves. If we're gonna hide what we do from the public, who are the people that we serve, what's the point? So I just want to say that this council really needs to recheck itself about what it's doing, and to exclude Ms. Javon Rice, who has given so much of her life, her time, and efforts to this town, is totally unacceptable. It just doesn't make sense. I'd like to know what criteria did you all use to exclude her or not nominate her or second her nomination? Because it just doesn't make sense what you did. It just doesn't add up. And I would please ask the council to rethink what you've done, because it can be changed. Removing Denise Belcher from the planning board is absurd and absolutely ridiculous. What good does that serve when the person that you're replacing her with has no experience? It just doesn't make sense. And I implore you all to please rethink what you're doing, because something is very, very wrong. And Black lives really do matter, and we need to show that in Teaneck. I think, I could be wrong, but I think we're about 27% of the population here. So it needs to be recognized that Teaneck recognizes that Black lives do matter. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Doug, I don't see anybody else in the queue.
I saw the hand. Oh, Henry.
There, okay, got it. Henry, if you could unmute.
That's my job. I'll reach over and unmute him.
Oh, is it Dr. Pruitt? Dr. Pruitt, please unmute
Pruitt,
yourself.
you need to unmute, sir.
I'm trying to unmute him.
Okay, let's,
Dr. Pruitt, try to unmute yourself, if that is you, Dr. Pruitt. It's not Dr. Pruitt.
I tried to unmute.
there you go. You're good now, Henry.
Yeah, that's Dr. Pruitt. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. The Township Council exercised its right to choose a mayor and a deputy mayor. The community expressed opposition to their selection. The Township Council exercised its right to non-reappoint Denise Belcher to the Planning Board. The community expressed opposition to this decision. There are consequences to every action taken by the Township Council, and it will be faced with some difficult decisions in the near term. As I see it, this council will have to work much harder than former councils to retain general community support. The reputation of the multicultural oasis of human relations in Bergen County is being challenged at this time. If this community is really dissatisfied with the Township Council, then it must get the other half of the registered voters to the polls and elect a new council in 2022. I'm done.
Thank you, Henry. Okay, and Ms. Fisher?
Good evening. Am I recognized?
Yes, you are.
Good evening. Recently I had a conversation with Deputy Mayor Mark Schwartz, and he told me, quote, "I'm all about action." And at this point, I'd like to see some meaningful action from this council to celebrate and respect our Black neighbors by appointing Black leaders to our boards. Not just your campaign supporters, but the Black folks who have been doing the work of community building for as long as they've been in Teaneck. You can also stop disparaging our public school system and start supporting them, as these buildings educate the majority of our Black and brown children. You can also consider moving the mural to a road that is not in a historically redlined neighborhood. And finally, regarding Denise Belcher's removal from the planning board, she is an experienced and highly qualified candidate, and to pat yourselves on the back by appointing a white woman with no relevant experience is insulting to me as a taxpayer. Your political majority was achieved by just 400 votes. You do not have a mandate to govern, and moreover, you have a responsibility to nurture this community. This is not about your political vendettas. It is about Teaneck, and I ask you to reconsider. Michael, we can all see you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. I don't see any others in the queue. Doug, do you?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay. Then we'll close good and welfare.
Second.